Today, we talk about a topic that is very popular in the news and also very controversial. That is global warming. To simplify the theory, if we continue to burn fossil fuels at the current rate, then the average temperature of the Earth will continue to rise. And we're already starting to see the effects of this in the polar regions of the world, where glaciers are slowly but surely melting. But what happens when all the ice sheets eventually melt? Will the entire planet be flooded or not? Realistic thinking scientists say, all the ice won't melt for another 5,000 years. But when it happens, the Earth will be a very different place than it is now. There are a total of about 5 million cubic miles of ice around the Earth. If that were to melt, the first and the largest part, the notable difference would be that sea levels would be about 216 feet or 66 meters high globally. And that worrying increase in height causes a lot of huge problems for society. You see, most of the major cities around the globe are located on the coast of whatever country they are in. This is because it allows for more trade and transportation routes across the ocean. Which is said, if the water level rose to 216 feet, most major cities would be underwater. Let's start with North America. Here we have cities like New York, Boston, Washington, D.C. and more. Right on the ocean. If all the ice melted, you could say goodbye to all three along with the entire East Coast, the entire state of Florida, and the same goes for any city in the Gulf of Mexico. On the West Coast, hilly cities like San Francisco would be nothing more than a dotted strip of small islands. In the Central Valley next to San Francisco would be a huge bay. Down under South America, most of the land lost will be in the northern and southern regions of the continent. Amazon, the basin in the north, and the Paraguay in the south will become huge, with a lot of water being wiped out. Iconic cities like Buenos Aires, Rio de Janeiro, Georgetown and more. In Europe, the real effect will be felt in almost every major city, starting north of Helsinki, Stockholm, Copenhagen, Amsterdam, Dublin, London, Venice, etc., all will be affected in some way. There, with most of them completely underwater. In Asia, almost all of its population is living on coastal lands currently inhabited by 600 million people and will all be underwater, forcing them all to migrate further inland. Can you imagine 600 million people having to give up their homes and move to a new city? Everything in Australia will be essentially the same everywhere as described. But there's something unique about Australia, and that's it. It's going to get a huge new inland sea in the southern part of the continent, which is quite strange. The continent that will lose the least land is Africa, which is visible because it is so large. However, an increase in the Earth's temperature could make the whole place too hot to live in. But we'll come back that perhaps the best thing about achieving this is that Antarctica will now be a habitable place, no longer covered with most of the world's ice. At that time, everyone can come here and start setting up town and community. After all, it's the fifth largest continent, and that sounds good in theory. But rising sea levels are just one of many problems that melting the world's ice will bring. In fact, sea level rise won't even be the biggest problem right now. Ice helps keep the Earth at an average livable temperature of about 61 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 degrees Celsius. It does this by reflecting more light from the sun back into space. If all the ice were to melt, it would be a global open ocean that would allow for a sharp rise in temperatures, with some estimates saying that the average temperature on Earth could reach 80 degrees Fahrenheit or about 27 degrees Celsius. And this is where things get deadly. Of the last 5 mass extinctions on Earth, 4 of them were caused by climate, including changes caused by greenhouse gases. The only mass extinction not caused by climate change was the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs. One of the most terrible events happened 252 million years ago. Carbon released into the atmosphere caused the average temperature to rise by 5 degrees easily. This increase in temperature triggered the release of methane in the Arctic, leading to the death of 97% of life on Earth. So I think by now it should be clear that something needs to be done. Assuming these scientists know what they're talking about, and we believe they do. Changes need to be made to protect our planet. While these major changes in temperature would take hundreds of years to occur, a life-threatening increase could occur in just the next 100 years due to the annual increase we are experiencing. And this is a big motivating factor for people like Elon Musk to settle on Mars, whose goal is to try and save humanity from extinction. And given the path we're on, hopefully it'll happen sooner rather than later. In addition, the option of making houses, cities floating on the water, or cities submerged in the ocean will also be a way to survive if science and technology develops fast enough and in time to ensure conditions for human life.